I just got three things to say. God bless our troops, God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Welcome to the Stire Sound podcast with your hosts, Trey, Stire, and Jack Noel.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 18 of the Stire Sound. We're back, and we have a little bit more silly season news to discuss on today's episode. I am Trey Stire, your host. Thank you for listening, as always, whether you're listening live on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you may be. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to continue to spread the word about the Stire Sound. We are recording this on Monday afternoon, and we finally got one of the biggest pieces of news. Chase Sexton finally confirmed to be a new member of Monster Energy Kawasaki. A sweet photo shoot he did, I believe, in Hawaii. Sexton joining Kawasaki, trying to become the guy to take that brand back to the top of the sport. Of course, so much success over the last couple decades with guys like James Stewart, like Ryan Villapoto, and they're hoping, after Eli Tomac left, Kawasaki has not won a Premier Class championship, and they're hoping that Chase Sexton is the guy to take them back to the mountaintop. And then the second rider, of course, a few months ago, it would have been Jorge Prado coming back, but after the Kawasaki falling out with Prado, that seat was vacated, and Garrett Marchbanks, well-deserved in my opinion, getting the step up to the 450 class, had a really solid summer in the 250 ranks, and of course has some solid results on the 450 in the past, is a bigger guy, is suited better for the 450. It will be interesting to see, but a brand new Kawasaki lineup, first time in a decade, the Kawasaki has had both riders brand new. 2015 was the last time this happened, with Davey Millsaps and Will Hahn. I'm sure they're hoping for a lot better results than that pairing this season. But joining me as always, and we're going to jump right into this, and I'll get Jack's opinion here in a second, my co-host from the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team, Jack Noel. We finally got a little bit of big news. Go ahead and jump right into this and tell us your thoughts on Chase Sexton and Garrett Marchbanks being the factory Kawasaki 450 lineup for 2026.
I think it'll be really good for not only the two riders that are at that we're talking about here, but also the team Kawasaki. I feel like their future of them putting a lot of time and money into guys. I mean, Anderson was a good one, but I feel like that kind of felt like it didn't have the buzz around it that a guy like Chase does. So you get a guy like Chase who's, in the prime of his career. These next 3 years they have him are going to be probably the best of Chase's career, if I had to guess, and he's already had a very promising career. And I think if they can figure it out, on a bike standpoint, I think the team, the people they have around that team, like the way it's structured is very much what Chase likes. It's very individualized. It's not, a big, there's, 4 guys answering to one guy kind of thing. It's like you have your guys that you talk to inside the team, and those are the guys that work specifically with you, with nobody else. There's no, sides per se, I guess you could say, because, the whole KTM thing, just the way it kind of, I saw from the outside looking in, it was very broken down where they were kind of shunning away from Chase, and they obviously knew he could win and they were trying to do what they could, but it wasn't this is my main priority, whatever. So it's kind of weird how it all worked out over there. But I think over here you have a guy like Chase, clearly your number one guy, and then a guy like Marchbanks who has little to no expectations, in my opinion. I think if he can go out there and be a top 10 guy, it's a solid year for him, pro motocross and Supercross. If he can be a top 10 guy, that'd be great. I think he has the ability to do that. I definitely think if he can hone in his skills on this 450, he has the ability to do it, and he has the tools around him to be really, really successful, which that's just what a lot of the times you don't see is a guy like Marchbanks, who is a bigger guy who's really good on the 250, but not the best, kind of struggles to find that factor with 450 seat. And now he's on one of the better brands, in my opinion, for Marchbanks. So I think it's it's going to be really good. And I think Cowie's really excited to have both those guys on board. And I think especially having Chase and Monster and all them guys, kind of being back in his program, like he was really, really fast on that Honda. Now we're bringing it back to that era of the aluminum frame with Chase. I think there's a lot of upward, upside. There isn't like anybody looming crazy large under him in the 250 class that's on a Cowie. There's no Jet Lawrence to look forward to on that team. I feel like all the eyes are on him, and I think if he can, get the nicks and crannies out of the way on that bike early and find a setting he likes, and I think it'll be good. I know he's been on that bike he rode a little bit before he went to the photo shoot in Hawaii, and then I know he's been on vacation recently, so he hasn't been doing too much riding, but I know he did quite a bit of testing just to kind of get like a base before he left and went on vacation. So I think he'll be in a good spot come May 1. I really think that he'll be successful in this brand. I think his mindset is very more better. And I think for him, a lot of it is mindset. I think it's mentally how strong can he be. And if he's mentally wavered at all, I think he struggles with that a little bit, like being fully confident. And I think if we have a confident Chase Sexton, we have one of the best riders in the world that can, in no doubt in my head, dethrone Jet. So I'm excited to see him on the Cowie. I think Marchbanks will be a good addition to that team. I think Marchbanks is a knowledgeable rider, and like I said, no expectations. So there's no like fighting for what is what. And just Cowie as a whole, I think getting rid of Prado and moving on from the whole AC situation, which sucks. Like AC was a great rider and all that, but AC was just so up and down. It was kind of tough. So hopefully it's good. I think it will be good. And I think Cowie is kind of found their future. And I think they have guys in the 250 class that are, whenever there's a 450 seat available, they'll be, willing to step up, and their future looks a little bit more certain now than it has in years past.
I agree with a lot of what you said there. And before I really get started into my full thoughts about it, I think seeing number 4 back on Kawasaki is just a really cool look. Of course, Ricky Carmichael really started his run of dominance for that brand in the 450 class. But I think you brought up a great point about Jason Anderson signing with the team back in 2022. That year ended up very well. 7 main event wins, a couple outdoor wins. But really that season, it was dominated by Eli Tomac on the Yamaha. And even during the silly season, that was the huge headline. After Eli had so much success on the Kawasaki, it's like, what is he going to do for the Yamaha team? What is he going to be able to accomplish on the blue bike after all of his success on green? And that kind of had Jason under the radar. And even you think about AP switched to KTM that offseason as well. There were a lot of high-profile moves, especially Tomac dominating that list. But it seems like this year, Sexton's move has been the dominant thing. Of course, Tomac is going to be a big story, and I would expect very soon, possibly even tomorrow as we're recording this on Monday, that we would hear that Eli Tomac will be aboard an orange machine. But Chase Sexton to Kawasaki has been in the rumor mill for months and months, and now Kawasaki finally, like you said, has a secure future as well. Even though Anderson did perform very well that first year and got some podiums afterwards, it seemed like with Jet Lawrence moving into the class, with Chase really coming into his own, it seemed like Anderson was shuffled down the pecking order a little bit, and maybe his switch to Suzuki will give him some more motivation, some more life, and confidence to do better. But when Jason came over there, you still had Adam Cianciarulo as the second guy. Of course, Adam showed a lot of great flashes and great potential, but there were so many injuries that it ended up knocking his 450 career down to the point where he never won a 450 Supercross main event. He did win some in outdoors, but so many injuries just took a toll on AC, and we really were never able to get a full glimpse of what AC could have done on that 450. And then, of course, last year they bring in Prado. They think he's going to be this new guy to potentially lead them into the future, and it just ended up being a nightmare. And Garrett Marchbanks, I feel like people forget how solid he's been on the 450 in the past. I think back to High Point 2023. Of course, I was there in the crowd. But watching Garrett that day in the first moto shadow Jet Lawrence for 20 minutes or so, and that was when he was, of course, on the Club MX Yamaha. But Garrett has always showed a lot of promise and speed, usually very fit as well. He never really fades off or anything. I think Garrett will be a great addition. And like you said, probably no expectations around him. It seemed like a very last-minute thing. Of course, the fallout with Prado, it was a sudden scramble. And there were so many rumors for a while. Marchbanks would have been the guy, at least my first choice for that second seat for a long time. but you had, rumblings. It's like, what if Kenny decides to leave Suzuki? That didn't happen. He ultimately re-signed with the Pipes Motorsports Group Suzuki Association. There were the rumblings that Cameron McAdoo could get the 450 seat, maybe one of the Hill brothers. I mean, there were so many different things. But ultimately, I feel like Garrett Marchbanks is the right choice. He's coming off his best 250 season. He's put together some solid 450 results in the past on a really solid non-factory bike. So let's see what he can do on the factory machine. And of course, we're still waiting for some announcements. Ducati has to be coming soon. We all expect Barcia and Ferrandis to be aboard that machine. Of course, KTM, like I mentioned. Still some dominoes to officially fall, but finally, we got that Kawasaki reveal. We got to see Chase Sexton and Garrett Marchbanks on the factory 450. Honestly, other than the Kawasaki news, there really hasn't been a lot within the last week or so. It's been pretty quiet, waiting around. Of course, the calendar has officially turned to November, so we're going to get a few more announcements in the upcoming weeks. Stay tuned. Of course, I'll be posting a lot of articles and stuff on motocross.com, TransWorld Motocross, of course. Mikkel Haarup will be back in America next year. That is one of the bigger news stories in the last couple weeks. He's returning to Triumph. He'll be running the 450 class outdoors this summer, which will be really cool to see. Of course, he had a really solid season running the 250 class. Almost got a couple podiums. He was right up there, I believe, 6th in the championship, even though he missed the last couple rounds due to an injury. But it'll be great to see Haarup back in America, and it's going to be cool to see what Triumph can do for the 450. And of course, Mikkel has been a guy that has helped test their 450 and really develop things, iron it out. So I believe he deserves that shot to prove that he can be a contender in the 450 class. It seemed like in his deal when it was announced that he should be returning to the MXGP series for 2027, still sticking with Triumph in their factory organization, but moving back to Europe. Of course, he spent a lot of time overseas and had a season with Triumph in 2024 before coming to America. And then in a little bit of other silly season news, more under the radar, privateer team stuff, Kevin Moranz is expanding his 450 team, the KMR Champion Tool Storage KTM organization. Kevin, of course, will be back. And Grant Harlan is added to the squad. Grant, of course, 3 solid years with the Rock River Yamaha team. Really blossomed into a solid top 15, top 20 level guy after his career in the 250 class. Grant was in the playoffs in 2023 and 2024. He was injured during the summer, so he wasn't able to climb back into that fight and really compete with those guys like Gio and Mitchell Harrison who were battling for the bubble spots. But Grant Harlan, moving to a KTM, it's his first time on a KTM or a Husqvarna. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts to that machine. And awesome to see the KMR Champion Tool Storage team expanding. I know Kevin has really prided himself on setting up his operations, and it's been steady growth. And he had a really solid season in his own right in 2025. I think 12 or 13 main events, and he won the Pulpamex LCQ Challenge as well. Before we move on and get into some upcoming racing, Jack, could you quickly run through your thoughts about Haarup coming back to the United States for 2025, or for 2026, aboard the Triumph 450, and then Grant Harlan moving teams, of course, one of the top privateers from the last few years?
Yeah, I think Haarup, for one, I think that it's for his career, I think it's perfect for him. If you want to make money riding your dirt bike, you do it. You got to do it. And I think him being like, yeah, I'll stick around. I'll race whatever you want me to do. And Triumph obviously is a growing brand, so they're trying to develop that motorcycle, and he's going to be at the forefront of that. Huge confidence, and he was kind of coming into form towards that middle half of the outdoor season last year on 250. So I think he'll be good. He's a bigger dude. Like, he's not like he's small at all. Like, he's a tall guy. He can kind of fill in a little bit more and be comfortable on that 450. And I think if he races the 450 here, he'll be comfortable and get, used to it, and then being able to go back to Europe in 2027 aboard that 450 where you can do a lot more things with it. I think it'll be even better for him going forward. So I think for Mikkel, it's a smart move, and I think it's a move that makes the most sense for his career, right? I think that's what this is more about in his eyes than it is Triumph's eyes. Because you could go out there and sign a big 450 guy. I know they're moving forward with Smitty in the 450 class, I believe, and they're going to solo it with, I think, 1-1 on each coast for Triumph, 250 wise. So that's kind of what I've heard, at least, with Jalik and Faulkner, and then Smitty on the 450. So yeah, I mean, that's for Supercross for them. Mikkel Haarup obviously staying for 2026 opens that up a little bit, opens that door to some more opportunities and whatnot. So they're taking the slow route, slow but good route. I think the 250 will be good. I think Jalik and Faulkner will be podium guys coming into 2026. So that's what they have. As long as those two guys can stay healthy and on the bike, I think they'll be in a good spot going into 2026. Triumph as a team. And then Harrop, I mean, he'll be able to develop, I think, more here than he would sitting over there doing nothing. So it makes the most sense for him to be able to do that. And then the whole KMR team, I mean, I know Kevin Rance had somebody he was supposed to go into 2025 with. And that kind of fell through right before Anaheim won. But I think Grant Harlan, I mean, yeah, I think he's a solid rider to add to a program like Kevin's, who seems to only be expanding. And for him, I think another guy of the caliber that you're looking for, right? I mean, it's tough. You could probably go out there and get another really good guy that's like on the end of his career, like a Colt Nichols or a Shane McElrath or something along, and even like a Christian Craig, right? But I think he's just going with the caliber rider. He knows what to expect and what is easiest for him budget wise. So it makes a lot of sense to see a guy like Harlan go over there if it makes sense for him. I think it's a good career move for Grant, and I think Kevin's program is really solid. So you can't really complain with the details of what they got going on. From what I know, at least it's pretty solid. So as a privateer, I mean, to get picked up by any team is solid. To have that kind of support is always good. So for Grant, that's good. For Kevin, that's good. A guy like Grant's going to be solid. So hopefully he does some outdoors, because I know Grant Harlan's a dog on some outdoors, so it'd be cool to see that too. But Supercross, he's just as good. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that team comes together. And I think Kevin, if he can improve off of his good year last year and not have like a slump year like he has in years past, and stay consistent, I think that team will be just growing and growing, so it'll be good. But I did want to ask you, Trey, about some World Supercross. Argentina this weekend, Haiden Deegan on a 450. What I've heard, I think he rode the 450 a couple weeks ago and has been kind of riding it just kind of to see how he liked it. They made the switch to 450 for Argentina, which I think will be way more entertaining than him riding a 250 in that class. I think Max Anstey and Shane McElrath might give him a run for his money, but I think he'd run away with it. But to see him mixed up with guys like Ken Roxon, Jason Anderson, Joey Savachi, Christian Craig, I believe Justin Cooper's doing it as well. A couple other guys that are worth naming, Greg Aranda, stuff like that. So, I mean, what do you think he'll do, and how long do you think this 450 move may become permanent going into next year, day one?
You read my mind a little bit with the next topic I was planning on discussing. I think it's a lot more entertaining move as well, because I feel like Anstey could have possibly given him a challenge, but I really think Deegan would have ran away with the 250 class in the World Supercross rounds he was selected to attend. Of course, he'll be in Argentina. He'll be in Australia as well. I think this weekend's race will give a real benchmark of how he does, like you mentioned, guys like Roxon and Anderson, who have won championships, won plenty of races in the past. Those guys will be a great benchmark. And then other guys like Savachi, Justin Hill, another one as well. He's back in World Supercross this year for Bud Racing Kawasaki, plus all the other familiar faces like you mentioned. Greg Arandas is back. You have some other really strong guys as well. But I think Haiden Deegan's going to perform really well this weekend at World Supercross. He might go out there and win it, honestly. And I know that's a bold prediction, but you talk about a guy who obviously has a ton of confidence, and he's going to have a lot of chances. Usually 3 main event format for World Supercross, kind of like a Triple Crown here in the United States. We know Haiden is incredibly fit and never fades off fitness-wise, so that will be going for him as well. And Justin Cooper, of course, is going to be there this weekend, so some more competition. I definitely expect Deegan to be on the podium, but I genuinely think there's a shot he walks away with the win this weekend in Buenos Aires. But his next round will be in Australia, and that's going to be a little bit tougher because Cooper Webb is going to be in Australia, and so is Eli Tomac. And of course, Eli Tomac, we expect him to be competing in Australia for the first time aboard a KTM. And of course, Webb, one of the best Supercross riders of all time, quite frankly, 3 championships. You can't argue with his success. And of course, Coop. We've never really seen anybody mentally, and I know they're teammates, but we've never seen anybody mentally really go toe-to-toe with Deegan. Of course, he likes to talk a little bit of smack and sometimes like to be a little bit aggressive on the track, but Cooper Webb might be the most mentally tough racer quite possibly ever, not just of this generation. And Cooper Webb is willing to play mind games. He's willing to talk a little bit of trash, and he's never been the fastest guy on paper. But man, every time you show up to a Supercross track, that number 2 is always in the hunt. And of course, coming off of his 3rd championship that he just wrapped up in May, it's going to be interesting. But I think if this goes well for Deegan, if he manages to sneak a win this weekend and then puts it on the box in Australia or gets close to it, I could see them moving him up to the 450 full time. But at the same time, like if he gets a 3rd and a 5th or something, they may be like, well, we need to go back down to the 250 class, get some more experience, even though I think we all know that it would make for a fairly boring Supercross series, whichever one he participates in, because he would be the heavy favorite whether he decides to run East or West Coast if he switches back to the 250. But it's going to be interesting for sure. Of course, he just recently announced that he will be parting ways with Thor, and he should be Fox head to toe, I believe, which for the Fox brand is a big splash, a big signing. They haven't had that in a while. Their guys have been kind of aging out. Of course, Roxon's still racing. A head-to-toe Fox guy, AC, was one of their guys that they were behind fully. But it seemed like Alpine Stars was really collecting all of the top-level guys. Chase is running Alpine Stars, Jet, Hunter, Eli. So Fox finally getting back and getting into a splash where, hey, we need a big-name marquee rider. And I mean, you think back in the day when they had Ricky Carmichael, they had James Stewart, they had Travis Pastrana. Fox used to be the brand you wanted to go to, and it seems like recently that's switched a little bit to Alpine Stars, but now Deegan's going to be back in Fox, and that could be a really dangerous combination. But I think it ultimately depends on how things go. If he gets a podium at both rounds or something like that, he's going to be on the 450 at Anaheim 1, and I think he's going to run the full season of 450 Supercross. But if something happens, he doesn't have a great weekend when he expects to go out there and win or podium, I think they'll go the safe route, go 250, put another championship on the mantle and on the door of Bobby Reagan's Star Yamaha truck. Of course, they're going to be pitting out of the 450 truck with the Fox gear deal, but it's hard to tell right now. We'll have to see how this weekend goes. And speaking of World Supercross, I'm going to go ahead and run down the lineups for the people who might be interested. It starts this weekend, expected to be 5 rounds. Buenos Aires in Argentina. Then we have some rounds like Vancouver, Canada, hosting another round this year, Gold Coast, Australia. And then in December, the championship wraps up with a race in Stockholm, Sweden, and then the finale in Cape Town, South Africa. And of course, Eli Tomac was the 450 champion last year. He is back this year, but as a wild card only. He will not be competing for the full season championship, which leaves Ken Roxon, in my opinion, as the favorite to get his 3rd World Supercross championship. Of course, Kenny won the first 2, back aboard his Pipes Motorsports Group Suzuki, but flanked this year by Jason Anderson, and El Hombre is probably going to be strong as well. And the 250 class, that team will have Kyle Chisholm, the ageless wonder, racing once again, and Robbie Wageman joining the PMG squad. Of course, Wageman, a regular in Supercross here in the U.S. with the Team Solitaire Yamaha team. I think Roxon and Anderson are the top 2 favorites for the 450 championship. Quadlock Honda's got a really strong lineup, though, especially in the 450 class. You have Joey Savacci, who has won main events and contended and been on the podium. He's been runner-up in the World Supercross Championship in the past. He is back. Christian Craig will be making his return to Honda after 5 years away from the brand and making his World Supercross debut. And of course, Christian Craig is a former 250 Supercross champion here in America. The Quadlock SX2 lineup has 2-time SX2 champion in World Supercross and a guy who won a lot of main events during his 250 career here in America. Shane McElrath is back with the team. He will be running the number 1 plate And a recent addition to the team, Brody Connolly, was supposed to be the second guy for World Supercross, but something happened. I'm not sure whether he got hurt or the deal fell through, but it will be Anthony Burden, who raced for the Bar X Suzuki and Yamaha team the last couple years in Supercross, and he's been a World Supercross regular as well. He will be joining the Quad Lock 250 team. There's some other really strong lineups too. I look at the Rick Ware Racing 250 lineup as one that could really contend. I will briefly mention Max Anstey is running the full season as well. The other guy who's walked away with an SX2 championship. Max will be running a Star Yamaha for the GSM Yamaha team. Joining him in the 250 class will be former French Supercross champion Maxime Dupre. And then, of course, you mentioned Gregory Aranda earlier. He will be on the 450 for GSM, and joining him will be former MX2 world champion and I believe an Indian Supercross champion, Jordy Tixier. The Rick Ware team, like I touched on a couple minutes ago, you have Cody Schock and Enzo Lopes on their 250s. I think a really formidable lineup. Those two guys could give McElrath and Anstey some fits. Of course, Cody Schock got his first AMA Supercross podium earlier this year. Enzo Lopes always fast. That team will have Henry Miller and Devin Simonson, a couple privateer heroes on their 450s. And then you have Moto Concepts Racing is back. You have Ryan Brees and Austin Politelli. They're Arena Cross regulars on the 450s. Cullen Park is back in the 250s. Another guy who could contend for podiums, maybe sneaking a race win. Noah Viney is back as well. Last but not least, of the usual teams coming back, Bud Racing Kawasaki. Justin Hill is aboard the program once again. He ran for them in the fall of 2023. Now he is back. Justin could be a dark horse to contend up front in some of these races, and I believe it will be Matt Moss on the second Bud Racing Kawasaki 450. For a while, there were rumors that MXGP racer Quentin Marc Prunier could get that seat, but it seems like it will be Moss instead, another guy who is no stranger to World Supercross. And then in the SX2 lineup, we covered this way back in episode 1, I believe. Cole Thompson and Kyle Peters, a couple of really strong veterans. Thompson, of course, plenty of success around the world. And then Kyle Peters, a 5-time Arena Cross champion. And he has a few podiums here in AMA Supercross. And the last major team, of course, will have the wild cards. Justin Cooper racing a couple races. Haiden Deegan, Cooper Webb, Eli Tomac racing a couple races. But one of the biggest stories for this year's World Supercross, Stark Varg will be entering the series with their electric machines, an electric bike brand competing alongside the gas bikes. You have the notorious Vince Freezy leading the charge. Now he's the silent assassin aboard that team. Vince and Spanish racer Jorge Zaragoza make up the Stark 450 lineup. Then in the 250 class, they will have Michael Hicks, who won the electric bike class in last year's AMA Arena Cross Series, and Lance Kobush, who of course had a breakout ride at Hangtown this summer, and Kobush has several main event starts in AMA Supercross, so he's no stranger to running under the lights. There are your World Supercross competitors. For those who might not have been aware, got names like Roxon, Anderson, Savacci, Hill, Craig full-time in the 450 division, plus McElrath, Anstey, Lopes, Schock, Park, Dupre in the 250 class. What are your thoughts on these lineups, Jack? Who are your favorites? And then maybe after you get done wrapping things up and giving your take on some of these lineups, throw in a championship prediction or two and who you think could possibly get the job done and walk away in December as the World Supercross champions.
Yeah, I think World Supercross this year is going to be good. I think the biggest thing for this whole series is the consistent racing and the good battles, right? Like I think Vancouver a couple years ago brought in some good racing, and as long as they can continue to do that, I think the series will continue to grow, and obviously the names and stuff like that help doing that as well. So I think a guy like Ken Roxon, Anderson, Craig, Sabachi, I think those four will be at the forefront all season long, and then along with the wild cards that you bring in, Justin Cooper, Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, that'll definitely mix in some things, and Haiden Deegan, right? So I think the whole series as a whole will have a consistent base to it. I think the guys that are racing the whole series are still good enough to compete with the wild cards. that are going to be racing otherwise. Because, like, in the first year, we saw Eli Tomac and Ken Roxon race it. Then we saw Roxon win. I mean, I guess it wasn't necessarily easy for him, but Roxon had it a bit easier, not having to really battle anybody else crazy. So, other than, like, Joey Savatgy. But Savachi's still solid. I think Savatgy will be good. And you got, like, Justin Hill and guys like that aren't as far off as you might think they are when it comes to a sense of, like, how fast they are. I think whenever there's less bikes on the track, the time, maybe it's half a second, looks a lot shorter than it does if there's 20 guys out there that are within that same time. So definitely makes it a little bit different. So I'm excited to see how it all goes. I think Anderson's is my favorite. I think Anderson's going to win this title. I think Anderson is comfortable in that Suzuki. I think he's going to be really, really good, and I think he's excited to be in, like, a championship hunt again. I think he's almost taking this more serious than maybe the AMA series almost. He's my pick for the 450 title. I think him and Kenny will be good. I think Craig will be just as good as well. So him, as well as I think Arando will be good. Obviously, the wild cards will throw in some wrenches in there too. I think in the 250 class, I think guys like Lopes, Schock, Cullen, Desprez, Peters, Anstey, McElrath. Those two are my favorite, McElrath and Anstey. But I think, like I said, like the gaps kind of shorten whenever there's not as many good guys on the track that are, these guys like Cullen Park is not, 3 seconds off of Max Anstey where it's like drastic and you can tell the difference and whatever. It's, Cullen Park is half a second a lap slower, best to best on most tracks, right? And I think that gap kind of gets shortened whenever a guy like Cullen and those guys kind of see the front more and are up there in the battle, and the guys behind them aren't really catching them when it's that close. So it kind of mixes it up a little bit. I think that just that dynamic of the racing is good too, just how many races there are. And I think even the Stark guys, like I think at Hicks they'll be good. I think Hicks is a very good at, like, defensive riding. Like, he's naturally talented. I don't love the idea of the electric bike being in the class, but I get it. Like, I think Stark is trying to cement their name into it. Maybe in a few years' time, there's an electric class at the World Supercross, which would add to the fun. But yeah, no, I'm interested to see how those guys do, and I think my favorite for the 250 class is probably going to be Max Anstey. I think he's going to be pretty tough to beat. I think Anstey's a Supercross champion in America next year if he's at 100% health wise. So I can't really waver away from that. So, and I think McElrath will be good. He's always been good in 250, and I think a guy like Cullen Park has a lot to prove. A guy like Cody Schock and Enzo Lopes are both going to be solid riders, and yeah, I'm excited to see how they do.
Max Anstey, American 250 SX champion. Quite possibly an early look at a bold prediction from you, but I'm going to go pretty conservative with my World Supercross Championship picks, honestly. I think Roxon's going to get it done in the 450 class, although I think it's going to be very close between him and Jason Anderson. I think Savatgy, Hill, and Craig will really be mixing it up for third place in the championship. I'd kind of give the edge to Savatgy there. And then in the 250 class, I'm going to go with Max Anstey. I feel like in 2023, he really showcased how good he can be in Supercross in that series. And of course, he came over here in America. He won that main event in Philadelphia on the Firepower Honda. Of course, the year before, he won the Muddy East-West shootout for that team as well. And then he got the star ride. Looked really good last year until he got hurt. I think McElrath will definitely be in the conversation. But I think Cody Schock is going to be one of the biggest threats to Max Anstey this year. Schock has a lot of confidence. He's been performing very well here in America on the 250. Of course, you can't count out a guy like Enzo Lopes either, a guy who shows a lot of speed at different times. I think Anstey gets the job done, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as his 2023 championship was when he pretty much just rode away from everybody. McElrath, Schock, Lopes, Cole Thompson. I mean, you mentioned Michael Hicks, who is really solid on the electric bikes. He could be up there contending. I think the SX2 class is a little more open. The 450 group is a little more top-heavy. Like I mentioned, you have those 5 guys, and then after that, I feel like there's a little bit of a gap with guys like Aranda and then maybe like Matt Moss, somebody like that. But then you have the 250 class. You have so many guys right there. I think Anstey and McElrath would be the favorites, but Lopes could win. Schock could win a race. Park could win a race. Cole Thompson will probably be on the podium at least once, maybe multiple times. Desprez is another guy they could be fighting for the podium. He's always usually pretty solid and runs up front. So it could be very interesting to watch, and I'm excited for more racing. I mean, I love seeing racing all around the world, all around the calendar as well. It'll be great to have some World Supercross action back this weekend. And of course, there has been some other racing going on while we were on our break between episodes. Australian Supercross continued, but it was more of the same. Dean Wilson still perfect in main event victories. He has been absolutely ripping down under. And so has Lux Turner. He's really taken control of this SX2 championship. Lux looks really comfortable, really happy aboard that Yamaha. And he is gelling with that bike very well. And then Partzilla Arena Cross rounds 3 and 4 just took place in Montgomery, Alabama. And shout out to your guy from the Dirt Bike Depot team, Gage Linville. He won 3 out of 4 main events in Montgomery. He swept the 250 Pro Class main events, one on Friday, one on Saturday. Then won the Open Class on Saturday night. The only other man to win a main event this weekend and steal Gage's thunder and keep him from having that perfect 4-for-4 weekend was Hamden Hudson. Our guy, of course, we interviewed him episode 2. But Hamden won the Open Class main event on Friday night aboard his PRMX Kawasaki. And man, was that a wild finish. I don't know if people saw the clip on social media, but Evan Ferry led most of the race on his Phoenix Honda. It was Ferry, it was Linville, and it was Landon Gibson, the Rockstar Husky amateur rider. They were nose to tail pretty much, and there was a little bit of contact, and they all fell over like dominoes. And Hamden went from 5th to 1st after passing Aiden Shive and then getting around all those other guys to win the main event. 5th to 1st, almost unheard of in any race, let alone on the final lap of a main event. But shout out to Hamden. I'm going to take a quick look to see if the point standings were updated. Aiden Shive should still have a comfortable gap in the Open Pro Class. He does. He has a 9-point lead over Landon Gibson. Of course, Landon was really strong at rounds 1 and 2. He swept the classes in round 2, but Shive has 85, Gibson 74, Luke Neese in 3rd with 65 points in the Open Class. Then you move to the 250 Pro standings. It is Landon Gibson keeping the red plate after another solid weekend, although he did not get the victory. He has an 8-point lead over Liam Aloff, and then Hamden Hudson sits in 3rd after his strong weekend as well. Hamden is 14 back. So going to be interesting to see what happens and what unfolds in that series as well. And if you want to watch Partzilla Arena Cross, of course, TransWorld Motocross sponsoring them. I'm sure Gavin will have his round 4 highlight video up sometime in the next couple of days on the TransWorld Motocross YouTube page. But the Partzilla Arena Cross series, they air on tape delay on FS1 and FS2. I believe round 2 will be airing on Saturday at some point. Not sure what time, but probably Saturday morning or Saturday evening at some point when there's not some college football going on. So stay tuned to FS1 and FS2 for that series. That's a little bit of a recap of what's been going on around the world. We are still going to be operating on this every other week schedule. We will be updating you with more news in the future. We might do another one next week depending on how much is revealed, but probably sticking to this bi-weekly schedule. We hope you enjoyed our rundown of World Supercross, so you know who's competing. Covered some Kawasaki news, of course, Sexton and Marchbanks going to the green machines for 2026, and a little bit of other silly season news. Before we conclude, Jack, I'll throw it back to you. Any final thoughts before we wrap up episode number 18 here today?
No, sir. See you guys in 2 weeks.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being patient with us and sticking around during this off season. More headlines and more news to come. We will be talking about the first round of World Supercross from Argentina the next time we have an episode ready for you, and we're hoping for some more silly season stuff to be out there on the airwaves so we can bring some discussion and predictions to you. For Jack Noel, I am Trey Stire, and the Stire Sound is fading out.